government who are non-regulators who don't want to regulate. We're going to give business to the Fed. And suppose they have another Greenspan there who's going to be a non-regulator. How can we do this? You need people. And if you don't put the right people in, you're going to have all the agencies in the world. They're not going to do the job. And so, I mean, we're really here. It just frustrates me. I guess as you get older, you get frustrated a lot more than before. But when you look back and see how we screwed up this country, now we got a mess, but we got to get out of it. I wish I knew what the solution is. But it seems to me, and it's not just business, it's the unions, everybody's contributed to this. Because the unions gave the cover to business to take the jobs overseas. And that's what happened here. And you know, I hope we can do something. Sure, I don't mind another consumer regulatory agency, but what good is it going to do if you don't put somebody in there that's going to regulate? What good is it? Did you people read in the paper last week where we were told that the biggest event which could have collapsed this country was not bailing out AIG? Remember we were told that? And then when the people got up to testify, Geithner said, I had nothing to do with it. He says, I had recused myself because I was going to be Treasury Secretary. Paulson gets up, who wrote the book, and what does he say? I had nothing to do with it. He says, because that was being run by the Fed. And then Bernanke says, I had nothing to do with it. Well, who made that decision to pay everybody 100 cents on the dollar? I want to know who made that decision. And when I talk about Brooks Lee Bourne, another great regulator. So, look, folks, we got a lot of problems, but we got to deal with it. And I'm going to tell you right now, people is the answer to this thing. You got to get the right people in who are going to do what they're supposed to do. So, I don't know if that shakes up anybody.
Well, when I look for the right person to summarize things, I always turn to Joe Stiglitz.
Okay. Well, thank you. First, let me say, I think the presentations were fantastic. And one of the things I liked about them in particular is that they laid out a broader conceptual framework for thinking about many of the things they've been talking about. For instance, the role of the securitization market and what is going to happen, the way the shadow banking system has increased. And we haven't really engaged in a debate, a discussion of how we're going to reframe the financial market. And I think that's very important. We've I don't want to repeat all the aspects of what have been emphasized. I do want to agree with George that behind this is some failings in economic ideas that helped provide the ideology or support the ideas that led to a lot of the failures, and I think that's why it's very important for there to be these initiative of INET, the Institute for New Economic Thinking, that try to reframe our thinking. I want to mention a couple of other points that have not been perhaps sufficiently emphasized. Usually in discussions of regulation, the answer that keeps getting raised is, well, it will stifle innovation. And I think we ought to recognize that most of the innovation that we've had has been focused on regulatory, accounting, tax arbitrage, circumventing our regulatory accounting systems, our tax system, and in that sense have actually made our system work worse. They have not been positive contributions to the functioning of our economy. And Paul Volcker has pointed this out very forcefully, and I think he's absolutely right. There is no evidence that any of these innovations have actually led to an increased efficiency of the real economy. They have contributed to the instability of the economy. And just take one issue. The major risk, they're talked about these as risk management The major asset that most American families own is their home. And they came up with financial products that made it more difficult for them to manage the risk of home ownership, which is why we're having this huge number of foreclosures with millions of Americans losing their home and with it their life savings, their most important asset. The number of foreclosures expected in 2010 is actually larger than in 2008 and 9, 2.5 to 3.5 million. If we had had innovation that was meaningful, that wouldn't be going on. They actually increased the risk of managing this very simple asset. And there are alternatives out there. There are alternatives. They could have done it right. The Danish mortgage bonds system, there are other mortgage products out there, but they did not generate the fees that have motivated the industry. And it goes back to the fundamental problem that I mentioned in the beginning, a failure of alignment between private rewards and social returns. When I was on the Council of Economic Advisors, I saw not only that the financial sector was not innovative, they resisted our innovation. We came up with this idea of having inflation index bonds, and it was initially resisted by Treasury, resisted by the financial markets. I scratched my head and I asked why. And then we figured out why. People buy these products and hold them to retirement. If you hold them to retirement, you don't make fees because you don't have people selling and buying them. And so for the financial sector, they were disastrous. For Americans worried about the risk of inflation, they were a fantastic product. And right now, with the uncertainties about inflation, they are the one thing that Americans can buy to protect them against the risk of inflation. One other point I want to highlight that's come up a number of times is the fact that we own AIG. And it's not only the issue of AIG with respect to the question of transparency, knowing what was going on. As I mentioned before, these products were involved in large numbers of tax arbitrage. And we ought to be finding out, as the owner, what went on these tax evasion cases. Massive tax evasion, sufficiently large that it could undermine the principles that were being used, could undermine the fiscal integrity of our corporate income tax and other parts of our tax structure. And yet, they are actually fighting this transparency and fighting these issues. Finally, let me just say, in wrapping up, there's a big sign back there saying wrap up, that even I can see. Just put it down now. So let me make a couple points. It's critical as we think about these issues of what are the priorities. And I think there's a broad sense that there are two broad areas of priorities. First, consumer protection. And American consumers have really been hurt, and that's why a consumer protection, a financial product safety commission is absolutely essential. It is important to get the right regulator, but it's also important to get the right regulatory structures. That is to say, they have the regulators who are linked to those who are going to be hurt, not those who are going to be helped by bad financial products. So I think this issue of where it's located is absolutely essential. The second point aspect is regulation for safety and soundness. One of the interesting aspects is bad financial products led to both predatory lending hurt poor Americans, average Americans, and also the financial sector was hoisted on its own petard. It actually was a major part of the weakness that brought the financial system down. But in terms of safety and soundness, the issue of too big to fail, the issues of the credit default swaps, the issues of risk, including leverage, incentives for short-sighted behavior and excessive risk-taking, those seem to me absolutely essential. And as I see what's going on, very clear that what is being talked about is totally inadequate to the problems that we need, that the country has already faced and is likely to face in coming years.